look at this bracha, this mazal, this blessing that we have today, that we are standing outside for a change. It's earlier on in the day than when we usually make the video, but we couldn't resist coming outside and with our wonderful cinematographer, Michael Bihar, to I haven't finished, to make the film outside in this beautiful sunshine that Hashem has blessed us with. And that's why we have to be grateful for every day that we are given, that we wake up and we are well, our name isn't in the obituary column, we are alive, and we have to thank Hashem every single day for every single blessing. And I'm thanking my Hashem for the best blessing in my life, which is my wonderful husband, Rabbi Benzaquen. Here's the Rabbi.
Thank you. Parashat this week is Mishpatim. We have now, just last week was the Decalogue, the Yitro Parashat, the giving of the Torah. And now we come to the details, because Judaism is in the details. That means you have to fulfill now commandment mitzvot. So the Torah, after giving us the 10 commandments, is telling us it's not only the 10 commandments, it's the way of life completely. And you have to consider everything that you do. You always have to be aware that there is a maker there, up there, he's watching, a higher being, he's watching you, and you have to consider everybody else around you, whatever you do. And in the parasha of this week, it begins by giving us, it's full, the mishpatim, of so many laws that applies to a slave, a maid servant, apply to people who are borrowing money, apply to when people are keeping things that belongs to other people as well. You are a shomer, you are a guardian, and how you have to behave with that possession and so on. The Torah speaks about the thief as well, even how you have to treat him. Some thieves, you have to, and the Torah said, if you find the content of what he stole, then he has to pay double. And it's not the same like somebody, there is a thief who comes at night, and then he has to pay double. But somebody comes and takes something from you, it's not the same. It's a very interesting thing. One day we are going to comment on that. But now the most important thing I want to say is that the Torah begins by saying, Ele mishpatim, these are the judgments, these are the laws. Now you're going to start in the way of life. Whatever you do, you have to be guided by the Torah. And that's what we do. We are guided by the Torah. And so it starts by a slave. Can you imagine? Here is a person that face hard times in his life. He finds himself where he cannot turn to anywhere. He just now end up, he said, my solution is, he sells himself as a slave. He's a Jewish slave, and he sells himself to another Jewish person. And the Torah really gives that guidelines, says to the owner, or meaning the person who is bought this slave, who is Jewish, it tells him, 6 shanim ya'avod uba shevei yetzel ha'chofshi chinat. 6 years he will be able to work, but the 7th year he has to go free. And the slave knows that he is not supposed to stay there as a slave, but you have to go free. And yet the Torah tells us, suppose the slave decide, he loves the environment that is encountered with this master. The master is really so nice and wonderful, and also all the new association that he made through being a slave for the Jewish master, and he decides to stay in another year. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said, you know what the Torah recommends for him? Said that he need to be punished, really. That's no good. Because he heard at Sinai when God said, Kili avadai, lo imacheru mimcheret aved. My children are my slave, I brought you out from Egypt, from slavery, so that you could be my slave, nobody's slave. And so therefore, the 7 year, you need to go out. And if he decide to stay, then you should pierce his ears as a sign that he has violated the mitzvah of the Torah. The question that is asked, why now after the 7 years? Because he violated the Torah and he sold himself as a slave. That should have been 7 years ago when he sold himself the first time. He shouldn't have sold himself because the Torah said, you are going to be my slave, nobody else's. And one of the reasons is very, I think, it's understood that when a person does something, sometimes, life catches up in a moment where we feel we don't have any other solution ourselves. We do things. The Torah, God is in a way considerate in that respect. God doesn't punish a person by doing things that normally he wouldn't do because it's not normal. He just doesn't know how to behave, how to deal with it. So God is selling himself. God doesn't like when a person doesn't know when to stop. That's the problem. So therefore, at the very beginning, God doesn't punish the person. But when now he is in a situation where he can go free, and he has got the medium to go free, because that's one of the things that the master need to make sure that he is well equipped to be free, and yet he doesn't. You don't know when to stop. That's when God doesn't like it. It's the same thing on Shabbat. Shabbat for us is something that is unique, very special. We are supposed to work all the 6 days. The Torah, the Torah said that Sheshet Yamim Ta'avot, 6 days. You have to make sure you have got parnasah, you have got a living, that you are going to bring an income for your family, education, everything you do in the 6 days. But when you come to Shabbat, you have to stop. Why? Because you have to understand, God said, one of God's name is Shaddai, that Ashamar La'olam Dai. God says, there is everything that I created in this universe. It's so wonderful. But it could have gone even further. When we have a tree, perhaps we could have had juice out of the trees, and out of the tree, for example, a cotton tree, we could have even plants, that come growing. But now God says, it's enough. Now man has to carry on the creation, the part of the creation. He should taf b'ma'aseh bereshit. He is a partner with God. Then you have to know when to stop. That's how it is with everything. And so we have to do whatever we have to do. And there will come a moment when we have to think about others, we have to think about God, and we have to know when we need to stop. Shabbat Shalom.